Ms. Weiner, for what purpose?
Will the gentleman yield for any questions?
Gentleman yield for questions.
Yes, I will, Representative.
Gentleman yields for questions.
Representative Leach, are you aware that my grandfather was an assistant attorney general for the state of Texas?
No. Congratulations.
Are you aware that he represented Texas in front of the United States Supreme Court 9 times?
No. Are you aware that my dad worked for Oscar Mayer for 25 years and drove the Oscar Mayer Wienermobile?
We can laugh, but I bring this up for a reason.
I'm proud of my dad like you're proud of yours, and I was actually just...
Well, I'm
that
actually about to talk about a moment of his life I'm not proud of.
Okay.
One of the cases my grandfather argued in front of the United States Supreme Court was he defended Texas A&M when they denied a club for gay students. He defended them in front of the United States Supreme Court. Do you think that's a moment in my grandfather's history that I'm proud of?
I don't know how that's relevant to the bill, Representative Zwiener, and I don't know details about that case or about your grandfather's history.
I bring it up because I think future generations are watching us here. And Representative Leach, does this bill or does it not now have language to explicitly deny students from being able to organize gay-straight alliance clubs?
So our bill, importantly, Representative Zwiener, just to draw a distinction between the example you just mentioned, our bill does not deal with college students. Our bill does put a ban in that would prevent let's say a 4th grader or an 8th grader from joining a club that is sexual in nature. Yes, that's what the bill does.
I'm sorry, Representative Leach, are you saying the fact that sexual orientation exists is more sexual than straight people existing?
I'm saying that we're not going to allow, by way of this bill, we're not going to allow gay clubs and we're not going to allow straight clubs. We shouldn't be sexualizing our kids in public schools, period. And we shouldn't have clubs based on sex. I believe that, and that's what the bill does. Doesn't mean that students have to hide who they are. Doesn't mean that we believe in bullying or discrimination. It doesn't believe that I think that our public schools should be places where hate is fostered. I stand firmly against all of that. And if a student is struggling with their sexuality or their identity and they want to talk to their friends at school about it or talk to a teacher or talk to a counselor, that's fine if they have the parents' consent. But we do not need to have school-sponsored and school-sanctioned sex clubs, period.
Wow.
I don't know why that's objectionable.
Representative Leach, are you aware that LGBTQ youth face a disproportionate amount of bullying in school?
I am, and I think that's terrible.
Do you think that some of these clubs might be the space where LGBTQ students feel the most safe and build a social network that they can count on not being bullied and not being discriminated against or experiencing that hate?
My hope would be, Representative Zwiener, my sincere hope would be that there are other clubs and organizations in the school where those students would feel welcomed and at home, where they would be treated respectfully by their classmates and their teachers. But to have a club that is based on that, on sexual orientation, is not something that I think needs to be taking place in our public schools. We just simply have a disagreement on that.
Representative Leach, are you aware that I came out to one friend when I was 16 and then told no one else for a decade?
I'm not, Representative Zwiener.
So, Representative Leach, are you aware, you and I are fairly close in age, are you aware that we've seen a generational change just in the time since you and I were in high school to now? We're now young people who, again, are teenagers, are going through puberty, are experiencing things, are experiencing sexual desire, are figuring out that they are LGBTQ as teenagers, which is normal.
That is not.
And
that is not
are now in a world where they feel safe to come out in a way that they did not when you and I were in high school.
Representative Zwiener, all throughout history, including when I was in school, in public schools here in Texas, the district I now represent 35 years ago, I too, along with all of my friends, went through puberty, struggled with all of the things that come along with growing up and being an adolescent and finding my way in this world. And at that time in our public schools, our schools were not hypersexualized like they seem to be moving this today. I've listened for hours in my chair over there about listening to members of this body debate about library books, and I've been repulsed at some of the things that I've heard and some of the things that I've seen, and some of the things that I've heard defended in our public schools. And I'm just sitting in my chair as a parent and as a policymaker thinking, is this really what we want to be happening in our public schools? And my answer to that, speaking for me and me alone, is no. It doesn't mean that I support bullying or support hate or support discrimination or support bigotry. I stand firmly against all of that, as I always have. But what this bill does is it not just ensures that parents have a seat at the table, Representative Zwiener, but that parents are at the head of the table when it comes to their kids' education. And I don't find that objectionable, and I'm sorry, I'm sincerely sorry that you do.
Representative Leach, I'm going to push back. You are pushing me away from the head of the table. I take my daughter to Pride events, and you are now foreclosing
And
the
you're
ability for me to let her join a club at her school.
Representative Zwiener,
This
you
is
just
not
said two
about
different things that are not
putting-
accurate. I am not prohibiting your daughter from taking your daughter to Pride events. I'm simply saying that let's not do it in our public schools.
You are allowing clubs that align with your moral worldview and banning ones that do not.
That is
making
not accurate. That is not
a
accurate.
political choice.
It's not accurate.
And it is enforcing that political choice on our young people.
I disagree with that assertion.
Representative Leach, I want to push back on something else you said. There is nothing inherently more sexual about the existence of LGBTQ people than there is of straight people. And if we are concerned about overly sexualized behavior in our schools, I would hope you would focus more on the comments young men make about young women in the locker room than about a bunch of queer kids getting together to support each other.
Well, those aren't my sons doing that, Representative Zwiener. I could guarantee you that. And if they did, there would be hell to pay at home. And I can tell you very, very strongly and firmly with my own kids in public schools that I don't want them joining a club or being a part of a club that is
Mr.
based
Antia, for
upon
what
sexual
purpose?
orientation
Will
at
the
all.
gentleman yield for some questions?